We have 11 games on the NBA betting slate for tonight, and I have some of my favorite player props for you guys to lock in for this slate. What we're doing here is we're using the Daily Grind Fantasy correlation tool to find two different flips on Underdog Fantasy, both of them for the NBA tonight. The first game is in the Celtics versus Raptors, and the next one is going to be in the 76ers versus Hawks. That is a total of 10 NBA player props for you guys to hammer, both of which, or all 10 of which, I should say, are correlated together in a positive way. 5 in the Celtics Raptors, 5 in the 76ers versus Hawks. Now, if you are new to this channel and you're unfamiliar with what I mean talking about the DFS correlation tool that Daily Grind Fantasy offers, the way it works is it finds player props on the different DFS apps. And I can give you a hint. For the Celtics versus Raptors, one of the plays that we're locking in is Derek White, who's been on fire, over his point total. Over, I believe it's at 12.5. But the way it works is Daily Grind Fantasy looks at player props offered by these DFS sportsbooks in the same game and then combines singular entries that are player props that are correlated together in a positive way. Meaning if one player prop hits, these other player props are more likely to hit as well. That's what we mean by them being correlated in a positive way. So for football, the example I like to give is passing yards versus receiving yards. If the quarterback goes over their passing yards, the receivers are more likely to go over their receiving yards. For the NBA, it's assists and points. So if Derek White is more likely than not to go over his points, his teammates are more likely than not to go over their assists because they're dishing it out, presumably, to Derek White. And then Daily Grind Fantasy combines these types of player props into one singular entry on any DFS book that you can imagine. Right now, both of them are on Underdog, but they have them for Prizepicks, for Parlay Play, for Boom Fantasy, for basically every DFS book that you can imagine. And one point that I want to bring home about why it's important to play these on the DFS books as opposed to the sports books, and it's because the DFS books give you the same exact payout per number of legs in entries. So 5 picks on Underdog, that's going to 20x your money no matter what individual plays you add. It could be plays that are correlated in a positive way, could be negatively correlated, could have no correlation at all, could be different games, could be an over or an under, whatever it may be. It's always going to be the same exact payout. That is not the case with the actual sports books, the FanDuels, the DraftKings of the world. If you take a parlay or a same game parlay that has 2 player props that are correlated together, they're going to lower the payout because they're taking into account the fact that the plays are correlated together. That is not the case with these DFS sportsbooks. So the value that you can find with these correlated slips is incredible. But don't take my word for it. Let the results speak for themselves. So Daily Grind Fantasy has tracked every single slip that has shown up on the correlation tool starting on August 18th. So almost exactly 3 months to the day, starting on August 18th, up 588.4 units in that 3 months. That is incredible. Think about that in terms of what your unit size is. Now, there is no unit shaming. Whatever your unit size is, whatever makes sense to you is okay. But even if you have a lower unit size, like $10, which for the people that I talk to, that is generally a lower unit size. If you put $10 on every single slip that showed up on the correlation tool, you would be up $5,800. In 3 months, that's like almost $2,000 a month just on the correlation tool from putting 1 unit on each slip. Now keep in mind, I have this filtered specifically for NBA games. If you want to take some NFL, some college football, how about some esports? All of these sports are offered on the correlation tool. ROI of 31.67%. And just look at the graph. Obviously, when the correlation tool was first released, it was just baseball. There wasn't that many options. Still slightly in the green. Goes up, couple downswings because that's the nature of sports betting. Positive EV betting is not going to always be profitable. There are going to be some down days, some down weeks, but as long as you can be what this graph looks like, consistently up and to the right, that is a good thing. And the logic of it makes sense, right? If these player props are correlated together, if one hits, that means the others are more likely to hit. And if you're not getting any reduced payout, just the logic of that makes sense to me. So we can get into today's slip. the first one, Celtics versus Raptors. As promised, Derek White over, it was 12.5 points. But we can just go through it from top to bottom. Play number one, Jakob Poeltl, good player who I do like, over 1.5 assists. Then we're going Drew Holiday over 5.5 assists. So this matches with the Derek White play. As I mentioned, if Derek White is more likely to go over his point total, that means players on the Celtics are more likely to go over their assist total. Similar with Pascal Siakam and Jakob Poeltl. Now, obviously, Poeltl is not the starting point guard who dishes out a ton of assists, but in general, that is the logic here. So we're taking Siakam over 8.5 points, and then Scotty Barnes under 8.5 rebounds. The plays on this are all A, positive expected value, and B, all correlated together in a positive way. And if you want to learn exactly how profitable and exactly how correlated these slips are, look no further than the profit margin and the correlation score. So we'll start with the correlation score. So it gives you a number based on 1 through 100 of exactly how correlated these player props are. And the actual math, how it's calculated, is it uses the correlation coefficient of each leg. Again, all you really need to know is it's telling you on a scale of 1 to 100 how correlated they are. Now, you'll see some plays in the 90s. As long as it shows up on the correlation tool, I would say it's good to go. It's green. Green equals good. And then if you really want to learn, you can just click this drop down here and it tells you basically exactly what I said on a number from 0 to 100. The profit margin. So the way the profit margin works is it takes the EV of each individual player prop, because not only are these plays correlated, as I've mentioned, but they're also positive expected value as well. So it adds up the expected value of each play individually while taking into account the correlation score as well. So 128% profit margin is quite good. Now, one question that you might ask is, why are we playing 5 picks non-insured on Underdog? And this dropdown or this icon here tells you why. It's because it's the most profitable type of slip on Underdog. And I can actually talk through that if you are interested. So the tool that I like to use is the DFS optimizer. Now you can find individual player props using the DFS optimizer as well. It's not just for educational purposes, right? It's giving you player props. Green also equals good. But I'm going to go to Underdog Fantasy here. And then once you're here, what you need to do is click this drop down here that says plus EV plays. And then it gives you each possible option that you could possibly play on Underdog. And then with the individual odds of each individual leg, I should say. So for 2 picks non-insured, each leg of the 2 picks has the implied odds of minus 136. That's based on the payout. That's not a great number. Minus 137 is not a great number, but minus 122 is good, which is what you're seeing for 3 picks and then 5 picks, both insured and non-insured. Now, in this case, the best bang for your buck is non-insured, but you'll see as you scroll through the correlation tool, for Underdog, it's not always going to be 5 picks non-insured. Sometimes they'll only give you 3. In this case, the play is 5. And again, you can use the correlation, or excuse me, the optimizer to find positive EV player props. I mean, here are 3 right here. 2 squarely in the green. 1, not much you want to go lower. 55% is generally the cutoff, but since these both are above, you can sacrifice 1 that is a little bit below. It's yellow. I wouldn't go below this number, but if you want to lock in 2 NBA, 1 NFL, here's a 3-leg entry on Underdog. That's not what we're taking, though. We're taking the Celtics versus Raptors. And then we also have one, as I promised, in the 76ers versus Hawks as well. And we can go through this. We can go through this one as well. So the first play is Embiid. We're actually taking his points. We're not taking him as a scorer. We're taking him to go over 5.5 assists. If Embiid hits his assist number, it's more likely than not that players on the Sixers go over their point total. In this case, we're taking Melton, starting guard for the Sixers, hit or miss as scorer, but in this case, we like him to go over 12.5. Then we're taking Trae Young, over 9.5 assists. I love this play. I took it straight up on the actual sports books. He kills the Sixers. He's been great from a assist perspective this year. Love that one. With Trae Young going over his assists, we like Jalen Johnson to go over his point total. This is over 11.5. And then lastly, Clint Capella, under 8.5 rebounds. Another entry for you guys to lock in. This one again in the Sixers versus Hawks. Correlation score here of 73.86. Profit margin of 107.16. So it looks like the correlation score was a little bit better than the previous one, but the profit margin was a little bit lower. Both of them are good to go. If it's showing up green on the profit margin, on the correlation score, that means that it's good to go. And again, plus 588.4 units in 3 months is incredible. It's very rare that you find that type of success anywhere. And like I said, if you just reset the filters, look how many plays there are. 36. This is NFL. This is esports. This is college football. Tons of options for you guys on the correlation tool. There's no shortage. So I definitely recommend checking it out. And that's all we got. So 2 slips for you guys to lock in. Hopefully we get these both to cash. We make some money tonight. If you're tailing, make sure to comment and let us know. Other than that, remember to like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and have a good one.